All right. Hey, how are you? Good afternoon. I'm Kyle Flaherty with 21CT. I am the VP of Marketing here at 21CT. I'm going to try to say it as many times as I possibly can throughout this whole thing.
I'm having a strange feeling of deja vu now.
Really?
Yes,
Yeah.
really.
We've been practicing this for a while. So for those of you tuned in at the appropriate time, we apologize. We're having some technical difficulties, but this is why you do a soft launch, right? And you just you invite your family and friends.
That's right.
So we don't have any family or friends here. But we have a live studio audience. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you. All right, and we're done. So that was really great.
Yeah, awesome.
So I'm joined by Mike Hamilton, the Director of Technical Marketing here at 21CT. And what we're trying to accomplish here every Friday is to take a quick look, 15 to 20 minutes, on a data analytics topic in general. Sometimes it'll be security analytics. That's what we're going to talk about today. It may be marketing analytics. It might be fraud. It might be a variety of things. So we're just going to...
but it will all be big data.
It will, well, and
analytics.
it really the biggest of data. And we'll actually, you know what, one week we should talk about that, of kind of the fallacy of big data overall, and kind of what that means. But anyhow, we are about a month after RSA, and we're actually sitting in our booth that we had at RSA conference. So if you were there with us at Moscone, you may recognize the booth. You may recognize us.
But we are not in the Moscone right now.
No, we're not. We are in Austin, Texas, actually. And so we wanted to actually set up the booth because we wanted to talk about what we talked about at RSA. But before we dive into that, wanted to talk to you a little bit about what you saw at the event overall. What were some of you've gone for a while, I've gone for more than 10 or 12 of them. What were kind of you left after a week at RSA, what were some of the big kind of topics that you were surprised about, excited about, whatever it was?
Well, the biggest topic that always comes up at RSA is what are the best restaurants within walking distance of Moscone?
Yes, that's true. This
so
is true.
if you take that away,
Right.
I know last year at RSA a big theme was big data, data analytics. And even though that wasn't an official theme for the show, it still is a pervasive theme. And I think a lot of it's just because of the pure noise and confusion in what data analytics is, what big data is, what big data analytics is, what
Right.
security big data analytics are.
Right.
And really, everyone now has something on their booth with respect to analytics.
Yeah, I was shocked. I mean, I did a walk around at one point, and it felt like 80% had something that said analytics on their booth.
Yeah, they have analytics, and right underneath it, they have a pie chart.
Or actionable intelligence.
Right.
Or something like that. But yeah, it was pervasive throughout the entire event, for sure. And we're talking 400 vendors. I mean, if you haven't been, it's getting bigger and bigger every year, and we can debate whether that's a good or a bad thing. Although we had awesome conversations overall, and we were excited to meet with a lot of folks. But I felt like RSA did nothing to clear, and it's not their job, it's our job, but to clear the kind of confusion around what security analytics are and what that definition really is. And we were actually on the phone with a esteemed analyst this past week, and one of the comments he made to both of us was the fact that there is no security analytics market. And what he meant by that was not that there's not a market and a want and a demand for it. Of course there are. There's thousands of people watching this live stream right now, I would imagine. I'm sorry, how many?
And I can count them on two hands.
1,022. So that's exciting for all of us. I didn't know my family was that big. My mom has logged in that many times.
Almost a megabyte.
That's impressive.
Well, if you figure she got an iPad and an
Right,
iPhone,
that's a good point. Right. But I think that we have to do better in defining what security analytics actually means, because until we do that, it's going to be difficult for people to understand what we're talking about. So for you, what does it mean?
I think the biggest thing is I've got questions and I want answers. I don't even remember what commercial that's in. It's all over the TV. You've got questions, we've got answers. I don't even remember, but I remember the tagline, and that's what analytics is all about.
I think he's just making that up. But
no, there's a you've got questions, we've got answers.
Okay,
something like that. Is it
Radio Shack? Oh, good. So a bankrupt company.
Great. That just completely obliterated my argument.
Great.
Marketing.
Yeah. So, anyways,
but anyhow,
it's basically you've got a lot of information out there. You want to ask questions, and I've got a lot of questions. You may not necessarily have all the answers to my questions. What's the meaning of life?
Probably don't.
And it's not 17 or
Mhm.
2 but it's about asking questions of the data that you have and figuring out those answers.
So that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the data that you have. So when you say that in the security realm, what are you talking about?
It could be really anything. It could be reports from a user that sees weird behavior on the computer.
Mhm.
It could be phone call logs. It could be net flow. It could be events from your FireEye, your FireEye device,
Right.
your next gen firewall, your IPS, or whatever that looks like. It could be application metadata from a Bro or a Palo Alto or something like that.
Okay.
So all sorts of different data you could be looking at. Endpoint security.
Yep. So speaking of that,
Segue.
that's impressive. Thankfully, we had done this entire thing
Right.
beforehand, so it really helps out, I guess. Maybe we should just start planning on not
We just
streaming
start
live
we just
until
start 30
15
minutes
after. Right. I think you're getting a better product, and that's what we're all about here with our community. So endpoint security, that was the other big thing. So if everyone was talking about security analytics, the other portion we're talking about endpoint security. And I mean, we've always talked about endpoint security, but 2014 was this, and we continue to see it, right? We continue to see reports and news and even mergers and acquisitions. You talked about Palo Alto.
Right.
Like, these guys are going after this stuff. So what has kind of sparked that for 2014? Why are we now, again, talking about endpoint security?
I mean, I think we've heard for years about sort of network perimeter security being insufficient to completely protect a network.
Right.
Certainly, it's required, and you certainly need it. No one's advocating, just open up everything, open up all the doors. You've got to close the door as best you can, but somehow, when a door was open, at some point, someone got in, and a lot of times the endpoint is sort of the closest to the action that you're going to be able to get. And having never been a sort of an endpoint vendor, I don't really know this, but it feels like it might be easier to see what handful of a couple hundred processes running on an endpoint are, rather than looking at billions and billions of packets,
Right.
putting them back together, pattern matching across them, or port matching, or whatever that looks like. And I think there's some M&A activity. I mean, the Fire acquisition of Mandiant.
Yep.
I mean, anytime there's a $1 billion plus acquisition, there's going to be some excitement and noise generated and some momentum from that. And that's really FireEye's push into the endpoint market, is through that acquisition.
Okay. Yeah, and this was their first RSA together, so they obviously were making a big splash. And I think, kind of circling back around too, that data you're getting from an endpoint vendor as well is data that you're going to want to ask questions of. Because at the end of the day, if I know something happened and I can get all the way to, it was Mike Hamilton's laptop or whatnot, then I can actually mitigate it faster and I can figure out what's going on and make smarter decisions. So speaking of making smarter decisions overall, and that's a weird segue because it could really go anywhere, but
You could take a lesson from me on segues.
it's okay. Remember, this is episode 1.
Fair enough.
Webisode 1.
Well, it's
excuse
actually
me.
episode 1.1.
It is 1.1, right? I would say it's 1.5. The way we are good. This is a half a version better. So what I wanted to do too was actually talk about what you guys and what we discussed and looked at in the booth overall. And so I'm going to cut over to our product, Linksion, so that you can actually show what we were showing people in there. So why don't you kind of start talking about it, and then I'll let folks see what's on your screen.
Sure. So this demo was sort of formulated as a part of writing our latest insight brief, 12 Indicators of Compromise. As we started
Well,
writing,
now he's just shilling white papers. I mean, this is good. You're amazing.
you've taught me well.
Hashtag 12 IOCs. Right.
I cannot believe you just did that with your hands.
Hashtag.
So as we were
Stealing that
as,
from
as
Jimmy
we were writing
Fallon,
this
I didn't
paper,
create that.
which my compensation is tied to how many downloads of that paper.
Oh. You
So
wish.
I need to get some gas on. So if I can get a few more downloads, maybe I can get gas on the way home.
Oh, such a soft life.
But as we were writing this paper, the Target breach happened, and it was hey, let's sort of test how good this paper really is.
Yeah.
Would we have been able to identify this sort of as it was happening using any of those IOCs, which of course you can all do through Linksion.
Yep.
And so that's kind of what we did with our friends, good friends at Ixia Breaking Point with the Firestorm 20. We generated some traffic to actually go in and get some NetFlow, get some application metadata, and basically put together this little simulation here.
And I'll cut over now so people can
and what
see
you're looking
what
at
you're
is,
doing on your
two
screen.
blue terminals. That's sort of the immediately visual representation of an internal host. So I know I have two internal hosts talking to each other. That's a pretty weird scenario. To see our laptops really should never talk to each other unless we're doing an AirDrop. Well, and the fact that we're directly connected here. But aside from that, we're probably massively breaching corporate IT policy.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's just the two of us.
Just the two of us.
Right.
What do the marketing guys
And
know
the
about security?
1,022 people.
Yes.
Right.
The 1,022 of my moms.
Mm-hmm.
So in general, we're talking to servers, we're talking to outside websites, Yammer or whatever kind of we're using these days internally. So this is pretty odd, and of course in a booth scenario, I'm trying to get our visitors to sort of ask questions. Questions asked, questions answered, and the first thing is I have a notice. There's no other end to it, so I really want to see what else is happening here. So I'm just going to go ahead and expand all relationships, and you can quickly see I've got another internal host. So I got 3 internal hosts all communicating with each other. That's a pretty...
So the blue, I'm sorry, but just to reiterate for those who haven't seen, the blue are internal hosts.
Right, so I immediately know that they're internal.
Right. And the exclamation points are some sort of alert that we had, again, from your data.
Right,
Could be a variety of things.
And it's just telling me I had SMB transactions. So not only are they speaking to each other internally, they're using SMB as a file share protocol.
Sketchy.
Yes, a little sketchy. So now I'm gonna just dig a little bit more and see what's happening. I'm gonna go and expand all the relationships just to keep it simple. And what you'll see is
so you could have, when you had that big menu.
I could have asked more specific questions.
Right. But for the sake of Friday afternoon,
and the fact we've already done this twice, I'm just gonna do the shortcut.
Wow.
It's like the cooking show. I put it in the oven, and then and then I walk over here, and it just magically appeared on the stove.
Yep.
So I've got my FTP session that's coming from my internal host out to this Russian IP address. I won't suffer you the indignity of embarrassing you.
Of me not knowing the flag the last time?
Your lack of geographic knowledge.
I was joking. I just wanted everyone to know that. I knew that was Russia.
That is Russia.
I knew it.
Well, the only reason you knew it because of the Olympics, right? Let's face it.
Of course. Right.
In fact, I
and it's in the news just a little bit.
Probably 50 people. Now, if it was a Crimean flag, then probably everybody would know.
Hashtag too soon.
Okay, Justin Timberlake.
Keep going.
So we have an FTP session. We can see the username of that session as well as the file name of the file that was transferred out. Those are, of course, the actual file name formats and usernames of the FTP sessions involved in the target breach. Essentially, you have point of sale on the left side of your screen, dumping to a dump server, then getting access by an exfiltration server, which exfils out.
So, in which part of those? Which part of that was normal? The point of sale dumping is an abnormal behavior, or were they doing that anyhow?
Oh no, that is an abnormal behavior.
Okay, so when would I or should I have seen? And again, everyone has their we could have stopped the target attack and all that, and that's not what we're trying to do here. It's more of it's a great way to show people what this network data looks like when you actually can visualize it properly. But at which point, is all of that behavior abnormal?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And so really the first sort of red flag is 2 internal hosts that I know are endpoints. If they were servers or any other sort of high-value asset, they would have been flagged. In a real life situation, if I'd have gone in there for a proof of concept, if Christy, our SE manager, she'd gone in there, she would have probably flagged this as a point of sale machine.
I hope Christy's watching.
I made sure to shout out to her.
Good.
So then we'll know she's watching if she mentions that we mentioned her.
Yep.
And then this host here, actually, ironically enough, this host was never actually compromised. This was the host that was using the stolen credentials. They weren't even stolen; they were on a publicly available support site. But so the point of sales were infected with, I think most people think it was the Black Paws malware, and they basically wrote their scraped credit cards to this middle server, who was just a machine that they happen to have credentials for, and then they compromised this externally facing machine, which then pulled those credit cards, and then plain text FTP'd them
that's a whole nother
out.
session.
And really, so the two things that would have been red flags initially are the two internal hosts talking here on the left side, as well as the middle to the right.
Mm-hmm.
Those would have both should have been red flags, as well as an internal host FTPing data out of your network. That's a pretty unusual,
Right. So is
policy
this something
violation.
then? I know the answer to this again. Talk about leading someone. Show folks too. This is a pattern of behavior that you don't want to ever see again. We had a lot of folks who came to the booth who were retailers or whatnot, had point of sales, and just wanted to literally, I just want to see if this is going on in my network.
Right.
So, and this is something that, yeah, you can do. And when we talk about analytics, this is exactly what you should be able to do. Is when you find a pattern of behavior, is actually kind of abstract that, look at it, and then ask that question today, tomorrow, every hour, whatever it is.
Right.
Like, why not make sure that you are focused on that behavior? And
Yeah.
finding it before it hurts you.
Right. So basically, once we've identified that pattern, we can select those entities that we care about and create a search pattern. And basically, the question
run
that we
that.
were talking about earlier, I've got questions. I found something bad.
Right.
Where else ever has this happened in the past? As close to real time as I'm ingesting data, which is pretty much real time, then I can actually see what that analytic looks like. And this is kind of what it looks like underneath the hood. But
Yep.
the best part is I never have to touch this.
You just hit play.
I just hit play, and that's as simple as it really is.
Cool. Excellent. Well, thank you for taking us through that. It was something that it was neat because this stuff should be accessible to folks. It was cool to watch people just kind of grab the mouse and be able to start doing this stuff themselves, because this shouldn't be all that hard. And that's another kind of part of security analytics I think that needs to be better defined is how deep. I shouldn't have to have a data degree to do this stuff. I should be able to do it myself. And it's something that just recently, even myself using this product have been finding, and we're going to talk about that in a future episode of Take a Look Live.
Assuming we don't get canceled.
We won't. I talked to the network. There, people.
YouTube's not going down
A couple
anytime
more
soon.
weeks. No, we got a 6-episode run. We are there. So all we have to do is just really get about 5 people to watch it. Really, I think we'll be okay.
Well,
I mean, we already have. There's 30 people behind the camera right now. I wish I could turn it around and you could see everybody. It's staggering the support we're getting.
Well, there have been much worse shows on network TV.
That's a good point. That is a good point. So one other quick question, and it's important and it relates to RSA. Best meal during RSA in San Francisco? My favorite city to eat for the most part, besides Austin.
I think my favorite meal was the first night.
Mm-hmm.
I was by myself in the bar of the hotel drinking your favorite beer,
Yeah.
and then they ran out, so you
Product
couldn't
placement.
have it for the rest of the week.
Oh, Pliny the Elder?
Yes, that was my favorite meal.
Oh, that's nice of you. That's really kind.
That and the amazing Thai dinner.
Yes, that Robert, our chief product officer,
Yeah,
probably. I think he went there 4 times
He went there
during the week.
4 nights out of 5.
He was a big fan of that place. I actually didn't get
Missed
to
out.
go. My favorite meal was the one that I was alone
It's your burger.
as well, and I had
It's your
my
customary
my
Thursday night
customary
burger.
last night of RSA, just disgustingly huge burger and fries and all that stuff. So that was pretty good. 2 other things at RSA that I thought were pretty cool, like personally. So these little things, 2160. And we had this gentleman come up to us. I think, were you there in the booth? So he came up and he had received one of these 2 years ago?
4 years ago.
No, it wasn't 4 years ago.
Years.
2. Jackie's saying 2. I trust Jackie. I definitely. And
Which Jackie? There's 5 Jackies in the audience.
I know. Well, there's so many. So and he came up to us and he asked, "Do you have any of these?" And we weren't giving them away. We were giving away Rubik's cubes and some other stuff at RSA. And since he had picked this up at the trade show, he has had a little girl, and this little girl cannot fall asleep without this thing. And he and his wife are living in fear that it's going to break, or she's going to lose it, or something's going to happen. So he asked me very nicely, and actually filled out a form on our website as well, asking.
He didn't believe.
Yes.
He didn't follow. He didn't believe.
No, this was
follow up
actually
after the-
before we got to RSA.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
and then he saw us, and so we talked a little bit there. But I just want to the gentleman, I won't name him publicly, but this is on its way via FedEx.
Well, keep in mind it is like 1 a.m. his time.
That's true.
He actually is in Europe.
Yes,
which is even stranger.
Yes, so we will get that to you as soon as possible. The other thing was some bit of hardware we came back with from the show. It's right there in front of you, Mike.
Am I?
No, you're not blocking it.
Just there.
Oh no! When you do it, go like this, just to make it seem boom.
Okay.
All right. So it was very 2001.
But
so,
that was probably your favorite meal at RSA, where you sat by yourself and received the award.
No, I was at a table actually with some really great and talented folks in the industry. But this is the SC Mag Award for Best Emerging Technology for what Mike just saw. I typically don't care that much about awards. I've been doing this for a long time, but this one I don't know. It holds a lot of credibility to me, and it was pretty exciting to have that acknowledgement. And so we brought this back from San Francisco for all of our developers and engineers who worked so hard on the product that Mike just showed you, and that make this product what it is. So that was really cool overall. So we're wrapping up. There's a lot of questions out there. I know I see a lot of raised hands. But we're trying to wrap it up, Scott. So please, keep your questions till afterwards. We'll be here signing autographs for a little bit.
You actually answered one of the questions that did come in about the Beanie Baby.
Really, there was a question about this.
About the Beanie
Really?
Baby.
Like, where do I get them?
What is it?
Or why was it sitting on the desk between us?
Right.
So, well done.
Look.
Yeah.
He looks cute, doesn't he?
Super.
He's awesome.
Super links.
All right, cool. Well, thank you all so much, and we are gonna. We would love to know other topics that you're interested in. Our hashtag is Take a Look Live, or go to the website. Send me email kflaherty@21ct.com. We would love to hear about the topics that you want to do, and we're gonna try to do this every single week and really dive into some cool and unique topics. So thank you all once again for joining us,
Woo!
and we'll see you later.